I just wanted to see who I was as a man, as a person, and I wanted to see where I fit in the world. We didn't know anything what we were doing. We made probably every mistake that you could possibly make in the book, and we survived, and we just kept going and kept iterating and kept trying not to make the same mistake again. Entrepreneurship is way harder than buds, way harder than being a Navy SEAL. There's no safety net, there's no roadmap, nobody's telling you what to do. I think success in entrepreneurship is basically two things, very simple. Number one, you just gotta keep going, and number two, you gotta try to not make the same mistake twice.
Some people wait for opportunity. Others fight for it. Welcome to Tactical Wealth, the show where discipline, service, and real-world experience become pathways to financial power. I'm your host, Kaj Larson. On each episode, we bring you the stories and the wisdom of those who have gone from boots on the ground to successful careers, from military to wealth, and how they've done it so you can apply those insights to your own mission and your own life. This is Tactical Wealth, from military to money. All right, welcome back to a very special episode of Tactical Wealth. We are coming to you from San Diego, AKA Man Diego, and I have the ultimate man with me here today. This is...
I should have done more push-ups, bro.
Yeah, exactly. Just a tighter t-shirt.
Tighter t-shirt.
Yeah, you of all people know about t-shirts, right?
T-shirt guy, yeah.
This is Ryan Williams. Ryan's a friend of mine, former colleague. We actually met when I reported to SEAL Team 1. He's a Navy SEAL turned entrepreneur. He was a sniper when we were at SEAL Team 1. We were in sister platoons together. And then he became a BUDS and SQT instructor, which the acronyms don't matter, but he basically helped develop the next generation of SEALs. After that, and Ryan doesn't know this, but Ryan became an entrepreneur and kind of became my mentor. He was the first person who kind of gave me that spark of entrepreneurship, and a lot of the lessons, both good and bad, that I watched Ryan go through as he built a series of businesses turned into my own lessons, and I hope he can do that for you as well today. So Ryan, welcome to Tactical Wealth.
Thank you for having me, man.
Great to see you, brother. So this is obviously not like a hardball interview, you know, like,
shoot, man.
Although you give people a hard time all the time.
Well, most of what I've learned is how not to do things. So I'm happy to share lessons. Like, I don't know if I have good advice, but I can definitely tell you the wrong way to do things.
Well, and we learn more from our failures. But before we get into the business side of the house, talk to me about your journey. I actually don't think I know this. Like, what inspired you to come into the SEAL teams, and how did you get there? Everybody has their own path to becoming a frogman.
Yeah, well, it was before 9/11, so it wasn't really anything patriotic or altruistic or anything. It was just selfishly, I just wanted to see who I was as a man, as a person, and I wanted to see where I fit in the world. And this is 95, 96 timeframe. And so, as you know, there wasn't a whole lot of, we graduated high school at the same time. Well, I dropped out of high school. I would have graduated 95, but I went to 5 different high schools in 3 different states, didn't graduate any of them. And then they went through, and I went through a quarter at I went to the last year of high school. They basically told me the first semester, they're like, well, none of your credits transfer, so you're gonna have to come back and redo your second semester, your last half again. I'm like, I'm not doing that. Like, I'm just gonna leave. They're like, what? The funny thing is, they sent me the principal, like, he's trying to talk me out of it. And he's like, well, you know, if you drop out of high school, you'll never be able to join the military. I'm like, dude, I'm not joining the military. Anyway, I don't want to do that. Like, no way. Like, get out of here. So I left, went to Havasu for a year, went to Mammoth for a year, and then kind of messed around. And I was about 19, and I wanted to figure out, like, who I was. And so I decided to try the hardest thing that I could find. And the internet at the time was like, you know, Google, what's the hardest thing you could do? And just, you know, be a Navy SEAL or climb Mount Everest. I didn't have 50 grand to climb Everest. So I was like, well, I'll research this Navy SEAL thing. And the more I found out about it, you know, the Dick Marcinko books and all this stuff. And it was very like glamorous and glorious. SEAL teams have great branding. They've always had great branding, and it worked on me. And the more I found out, the more I respected those guys, and I wanted to respect myself as much as I respected them. And so I started training for it and went in. But that was the real reason for it. It was selfishly, I just wanted to see if I could do it. But once I got in, I realized like, oh, this is because my dad wasn't around growing up. I didn't have a lot of male figures in my life. Once I got in, I was like, oh, this is like man stuff. You know, it was really cool. And I was like, I was all in.
And you kind of grew up in the SEAL teams. You were young.
Yeah, I was like 19 when I started.
19 when you went through Buds.
Yeah.
Well, when I started.
Yeah, it was October. So I think I turned 20 at boot camp. Yeah, so I went through Buds at 20. I turned 21 right after Buds. Oh, because I went to jump school underage and got kicked out with a fake ID.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I didn't get kicked out. I was in a strip club underage with a fake ID. Well, Tyler Coakley is another team guy.
Yeah.
So I got his ID. I'm at a strip club, yeah, underage with this ID and a stripper on my lap and titties in my mouth and a vodka Coke because I didn't know what to order. And I got raided by the ATF and the DEA.
Yeah. Vodka Coke, by the way, is a dead giveaway.
Right.
So
I didn't know what to
I'm
order.
Underage and I don't know what to drink.
I'm like, what do adults order? I don't know. So anyway, I did that, got away with that and got kicked out of jump school for wearing a watch to PT. You know how the Army is. And then, yeah, I turned 21 a couple months after that of the team, but it was kind of a wild ride, but it wasn't, I mean, I don't know if anybody has a normal path to the SEAL teams. We're all kind of outliers, I would say.
Yeah. And did you go straight to Team 1?
Yeah, I went right to Team 1 right after that.
No fun one.
It doesn't help getting checked in with like, just got kicked out of jump school too.
Oh yeah, you don't need that kind of black mark to start.
Yeah, they were big fans of Ryan Williams at the time.
That's crazy. Yeah, so you went through Buds pre 9/11. You go to No Fun 1, our first SEAL team together, and then what was your career like? Had you done a platoon before we did that Thailand platoon together?
Yeah, that was my third platoon.
Okay.
Yeah, I did one before 9/11, one after 9/11. That was the third one but I never got to do any war because there's nothing going on before 9/11. The second one, we stood up Djibouti before Iraq kicked off and Afghanistan was going on. They dangled the carrot of like, well, if you guys stand up Djibouti, like, because we didn't know if we were going to hit Yemen or Iraq. Well, if Yemen goes off, you guys will be the first ones there. Of course, that didn't happen, so we got to do nothing. Right. Except hang out in Djibouti, Africa, which I don't recommend.
The worst place on the planet.
Yeah, and then they dangled the carrot again for a third platoon.
Yeah, and then the third platoon, we go to PACOM, and they dangled that carrot. We were supposed to rip over to Iraq after 3 months.
And then we had a big drug scandal.
And then we had a drug scandal, and it blew up the whole platoon.
Yeah, and I'm back at Team 1 installing doorstops. And I didn't pop with anything. I wasn't even in trouble. But they're like, yeah, but you're hanging out with people who are in trouble. So you're a bad guy. The military sense of responsibility is not my favorite.
Yeah. Yeah. And then is that when you went over to SQT to become an instructor after that?
I went over to Buds because I was 3 platoons. So I did 6 years at Team 1 and I did about 3.5 years at Buds teaching third phase, which is really cool. Such a cool experience. That's where I learned more about leadership than anything else.
And is that where you started Forged? Is that when you started?
Yeah, I met Mikey Sowers. We were Buds instructors there. We started hanging out and he was, Mikey's main character, in a lot of ways, Mikey taught me how to party. I was a very average team guy. I wasn't even a main character then. I was super nice and accommodating and kind of a pushover in a lot of ways. It was like
not how I remember you at all when I was checking into Team 1, but that's okay.
I don't know.
Even though I was an officer, I was like, who is this huge fucking guy?
Oh yeah, well I discovered steroids at that point. So I was like 235 at the time. Yeah.
But no, this is the part that's interesting to me. Like, look, one of the cool things about our friendship is that it has evolved not just over decades, like service in the SEAL teams, but it's evolved over phases in our life.
Yeah, totally.
Right? Like when we were when we were at the team and we were gunslinging, we were like working hard and partying hard.
Yeah.
And I always thought of you as like one of the best dudes on the planet, but thanks, the guy who we asked to run through the door at work and then bust down the door at night also. Right? Like you're a Neanderthal. You're a big Neanderthal.
Yeah.
But then you make this transition and you start on this other journey. How did that happen?
So Mike and I started Forge. We had this was our first clothing line. It was actually our last business idea because we're instructors together and we're both just like, hey, we're getting the heck out of the military, So we went through a dozen business ideas and clothing line was actually the very last one. Because everybody thinks I'm gonna have a tactical company, I'm gonna do all this stuff. But then there's like 5 things that I normally now I run every good idea, what I think is a good idea, through these 5 factors. And after these 5 factors, I'm like, well, things become less shiny, you know? And we did that. And it turns out that the clothing line was the best one of our ideas. I mean, we had everything from like, you know, Navy SEAL party planner and like really weird off the wall stuff, you know? And so we started the clothing line, and we knew nothing about business. We paid an attorney $5,000 to basically form the company. And at the end of it, he's like, which one of you wants to be CEO or vice president or whatever? We hadn't even thought about it. We were literally in the lawyer's office, and we were like, I don't know. So we flipped a coin. So Mike was president and I was vice president. And we didn't even know anything about roles and responsibilities. So we're like, well, I guess you'll be president or CEO, and I'll be vice president and head of design, because I have a computer now and I kind of know how to work Illustrator. So I did that. And we just kind of figured it out, man. We didn't know anything what we were doing. We made probably every mistake that you could possibly make in the book. And we survived, and we just kept going and kept iterating and kept trying not to make the same mistake again. And we eventually worked. I was 5 years in. I sold my half of that company to one of our employees. 5 years later, started another clothing line, sold that, and then started the kettlebell company, which Dave Castor at CrossFit helped out immensely with that, and then sold that. And then that brought us to our current company, Industry Threadworks.
Right. So you sort of like fell into, haphazardly became this serial entrepreneur. Yeah. And you picked, like, knowing then what you know now, right? Fashion is like a pretty steep slope.
I wouldn't do apparel. I would not recommend apparel.
Right. But like, okay.
Timing's a lot of it too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, timing's a lot of it. So starting, because now we work with a lot of brands that are coming up, and like every business has timing where like you catch a wave. It's like surfing, man. I'm not a surfer, but you are. So, but a lot of businesses like that, you see something coming and then you build it getting ready to go. And if you have enough speed and acceleration, momentum in the company, as this wave is coming, you can ride it pretty far. And in 2007, we started that. There weren't a whole lot of
military themed apparel companies.
So we got to be pretty big in the space at that time. Not because we were good, just because we
no good idea is born before its time, and no good idea is born after its time. Yeah.
But that little niche has completely changed, because back then it was really difficult to start a company. So once you started it, it was easier to scale because there wasn't as many. It was easier to get escape velocity and get known and seen, so you could grow faster.
And now the competitive landscape
now it's the opposite. Adequate. It's so easy. Like we started clothing line right here in 30 minutes. You know, it's so easy.
There's no barriers to entry, so the market inherently gets more competitive.
The opposite now of that is that there's so much chaff in the air that the escape velocity is so hard. It's so hard to get known and seen. And I mean, I could go on that forever, but basically it's about $1 million. You have to be about $1 million gross before you can spin off enough money to hire the people, to get big enough to hire the people to do all the things that you need to be successful. So yeah, it's completely like opposite of what it was back then. It was like, what was that, 18 years ago?
Yeah, that's fascinating. And by the way, none of this was part of your lexicon or even your thought process back then.
No,
right?
Looking back, it was like, wow, I'm just tired of being poor, and entrepreneur sounds good.
Yeah.
I didn't know. It was just a different version of poor.
Yeah, a different version of poor and a different version of buds, because entrepreneurship is hard.
Dude, it's the hardest thing I've ever done in my life. Entrepreneurship is way harder than buds, way harder than being a Navy SEAL. There's no safety net. There's no roadmap. Nobody's telling you what to do. Oftentimes you don't know what the right answer is until months down the line. You're like, well, that was wrong. And now I got to unwind this 2 months of decisions that I made. Or it's right. And you're like, great, but I should have done this or should have done that. Yeah, it's really difficult, man.
It's crazy. And I remember, like, you guys, I remember Forge quite well. I mean, obviously I followed it because of you, but I have this like very distinct memory of walking through an airport sometime somewhere. I can't even remember if I was like in uniform or out of uniform. And some random guy in like Texas was wearing a Ford shirt, obviously not in the military based on like body type and haircut. And I like just went up and talked to him. I like, oh, how'd you get that t-shirt?
Yeah.
He's like, oh, I'm a big fan of these like Navy SEAL guys.
Oh, that's
I was
cool.
like, that's my buddy's company.
Yeah.
I was so stoked. I couldn't believe it. So yeah, you guys were one of my like, I was saying like, you know, our other our other friend who is the AOIC of your
Oh,
platoon,
yeah.
he was the guy who I would have predicted would have been the serial entrepreneur.
For sure.
Naval Academy to Harvard Business School,
All the
all of
pedigree.
this stuff, right? Like he had all the pedigrees. But what you did was like you built multiple companies like through sheer force of will, and you learned all this stuff. And I've watched your evolution over the course of time. It's extraordinary.
Well, the thing is too about that, it takes a certain amount of grit, obviously, but I have learned too that you can make anything work, but there's been times where I wanted something so bad and I pushed and pushed and pushed. And there's a certain amount of pushback that you get, like everything's going to be difficult. But there's also times where I push and there's an unreal amount of just problem after problem after problem. But I pushed through and I pushed through and pushed through and I got it. And I realized this is a terrible idea. Like I should have not done this. So now this might be a little bit wishy-washy, but now I leave room in my plans for the universe or God or fate, or whatever you want to call it. I leave room in them in my plans for the universe to work. And so there's an expected amount of challenges that pop up. But if I see certain things, like there's a point where it's like, okay, this is more difficult than it should be. I always take a step back. I'm like, okay, what am I missing here? What are the pieces that I'm missing? And this happened, a specific example of this a couple of years ago, we were thinking about expanding into a much bigger warehouse, and all made sense. And everything was done, everything was negotiated. All I had to do was sign the paperwork, and we'd have this, I think, 3-year lease on a much bigger space. And then they wanted this last thing. It was like a personal guarantee, but all my shit's personally guaranteed anyway, so that wasn't even an issue. But I was like, okay, hold on. This is the third pushback thing. And I've been down this road before. I'm like, what is the universe trying to tell me? So I took a pause. And I'm like, okay, let me relook at this stuff. And I pulled it back, took a little deeper dive, and I realized that, oh my God, this is a terrible idea. I was this close to signing what would have got us into a really terrible position, but it was because I'd recognized those signs and those patterns before that I took a step back. And I'm like, okay, but if I had been unaware of that or not paid attention to the same problems I was faced before and just done it again, I would have gotten ourselves into a really bad position. So now I try to, push, but I leave room for the universe to work and try to pay attention to the signs. That's kind of how the universe works. Like it'll tap you on the shoulder and it'll keep just hitting you harder and harder until you finally listen to it.
If you ignore it, eventually it'll hit you with a sledgehammer.
Yeah, totally. So that's why I try to pay attention to the shoulder taps now. I'm like, what are you trying to tell me?
Well, some people would call it like spidey sense, right? But what it really is more likely like an accumulation of experience that is telling you that something is off, right?
Yeah. That's one of the only good things about getting older, I think, is that you get better at recognizing patterns,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is pattern recognition.
Everything starts to look like, I think Ray Dalio does a great job of describing this. His book Principles is, over a long enough time period, everything starts to look like another version of something else. Yeah. And so you just get better at recognizing the patterns.
Yeah, one of my favorite quotes is that history doesn't repeat, but it rhymes.
Exactly.
Yeah. So if you start to hear these vowel sounds that sound the same, that and pattern analysis is the key to anything. I think military people can make good entrepreneurs as long as they follow the scientific method, right? Like you recognize a problem, you have a hypothesis, and then you test that hypothesis with data and feedback.
I found too that you really got to remove your ego from the equation, because there's so many times where you think it's a good idea. It's a balancing act too, because to bring something new into the world that hasn't been done before, so you kind of got to bet on yourself and be like, hey, I think this is what the world wants. But also sometimes the market doesn't care what your plans are. The market does not care at all. So you got to pay attention to the market. And there's plenty of times where I have this idea or a design, right, for the apparel line. Oh, this is going to be gangbusters. It's my favorite thing. And I've spent way too much time nuancing this layer and this vector point, whatever. And it just falls flat. It's crickets.
Yeah.
And then a throwaway design, I will just throw this up, whatever, goes gangbusters. So it's kind of one of those things, you have to walk the line of staying true to your vision, walking the path, and presenting new stuff out in the world, but also paying attention to the market and being like, hey man, recognizing when something doesn't work. And be like, okay, I thought this was going to work and I was wrong, and squashing your ego and pulling it back. And it's tough, man, because I'm wrong probably. Out of my ideas, all the ideas I have, about 99% of them are bad.
Yeah, that's sort of like my venture portfolio is about the same, about the same hit rate, but you get that 1,000x,
You get
and then you're
one,
good.
and that's kind of how Disney, my wife Disney, she's a really good operations person, and that's kind of how we operate. Is I try a bunch of stuff, and I get one thing that kind of works, and I'm like, okay, I kind of get it functioning, and then I'm like, hey babe, like let's work on this. And she comes in and tells me how wrong I am and all this stupid shit. And she puts the scaffolding around the infrastructure and the systems and processes and develops SOPs. And once we have that, then we can apply personnel to it. We can hire people to do the SOPs and the processes. And that's how we can scale something out.
Yeah.
So I just test a bunch of stuff, and yeah, most of it doesn't work, man.
Yeah.
But the shortage of ideas is never a problem. Like there's so many good ideas out there.
Yeah, I always say there's no IP in ideas. There's only IP in execution. I want people to understand exactly on your journey. So you first built this clothing business, and that really allowed you to get under the hood of fashion and retail and understand it from an operator's perspective, right?
Yeah, in that situation with Mikey, he was the visionary, I was the operator.
Okay.
So I was the guy doing all the manufacturing, managing the manufacturing.
But regardless, you learned the business by doing, right? You learned about like all the returns and like the having a good needle to make the thing, like all that goes into making a fashion brand.
Yeah, and then in partnership too, we, by stepping on each other's toes, we figured out our roles and responsibilities. And like, hey, you're in charge of this, I'm in charge of this. We talk about everything, but I think it's very important that somebody has to have execute authority for certain things within that space, and mine was design and the manufacturing process. His was overall big picture and driving the company.
And then as you saw what became a good business with a lot of blue horizon, as you saw that sort of become more and more crowded in the space, you ultimately sold that piece of the business. But you took then the lessons learned, and those ultimately translated into your current business, Industry Threadworks, and you decided, tell me if I'm fucking this up, but you basically decided like, I want to be the casino. Like I want to be the platform for military guys who build apparel brands.
Yeah, I didn't, that wasn't a plan going in, but I sold my half of Forged about 2012, 5 years in. And then I built and sold another apparel line pretty quickly.
Was that the Disciples of Iron?
Yeah.
I remember that one. Yeah, I like that one.
Yeah, it was fun, man. I like it. I really enjoy apparel. It's a unique product. It's super fun. I get to be creative because there's not a whole lot of outlet for creativity in the SEAL teams. And it was a good time. And then I built the kettlebell company, and that was the first company I sold where it had enough money to where I was like, okay, I can take a little bit of a break and take a step back and figure out what I want to do from there. But I still had a day job. I was still working at SQT as an instructor. So I sold 3 companies while still having a day job, which I think is super important.
Huge point. Most companies these days, I could tell you this, like Adam Grant's story about not investing in Warby Parker, but it's not important. The important thing is, I say this to entrepreneurs and to companies that I invest in all the time. For me, it's not a red flag if somebody has a day job. Most companies these days, people have a 9 to 5, and then they build their startups 5 to 9. And actually, often until you get to a certain scale, it serves a real purpose, which is not taking money out of the business.
Exactly.
But from someone who invests in founders, I always look at it. For me, it's a hustle equation. If you can do both of these things and have the time management skills to balance these, you're more likely to be successful in your startup endeavor because you know how to grind.
Exactly. And also you're not living off the money that you're investing, But yeah, that's, I think most people go through that process because there's 2 schools of thought on entrepreneurship. And the sexy version is burn the boats, go all in, which sounds cool. But personally, I think that's horrible advice, because the reality is that most businesses are going to take at least 1.5 to 3 years to
start kicking off revenue.
Yeah, because you've got, say an apparel line is running at, say 20% net profit, right? So if you're doing $100,000 a year in gross sales, you can't live off $20,000, right? But if it's doing $1 million in gross sales, you can live off 200. But if you have to live off it from the start, you don't have enough money to grow it. And that's the thing people don't understand about business too. They think, oh, my business is growing, I'm making money. It's the opposite. If your business is growing, it's not making any money. I remember I was talking with Sean, who owns one of the biggest print shops that we partnered with at the time. I was talking about the apparel line. It's like, man, I was like, dude, we're doing well, but I don't feel like I have any money. He's like, yeah, because you're growing. Or you never feel like you have any money until you stop growing or sell it.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, that makes me feel better. It was more of I just didn't realize that was a normal process. But yeah, I think having a day job is very key for the notes that you mentioned as well. But primarily because it's just from a mathematical standpoint.
You're not taking money out of the business.
Exactly. So you can roll it all so you can grow it faster and get to that apex point where you can actually live off it. And then that's what I was doing. So I started Industry because I sold the kettlebell company. I think I have them around here somewhere.
I saw a Demon Bell over there.
Yeah, those are the resin cast ones.
Yeah, I know what I threw it around. I felt
yeah,
strong.
Right. Yeah. 72 pounds.
Yeah.
Good. I sold that company. I was looking around what to do, and there's a dude that I didn't know at the time, but he had a really cool company, but it was kind of a mess, man. And I went on the website to try to buy a shirt, and it was just a disaster. I couldn't even check out. And so I sent him a message like, "Hey, man, like, I really like this shirt. I'm trying to buy it, but the checkout process is pretty convoluted." And like, I told him, I was like, "Hey, man, if I'm the only idiot that's having this problem, like, I'm an idiot. It's my fault. But if you're getting other messages like this, it's probably the checkout process. And, not to toot my own horn, but I do have some experience in this. I know how to do this, and I'm happy to like help you do this." So he reached out, we chatted, and it turned out he was doing about $100,000 a year in sales at the time. So we helped him revamp that whole thing, and he got up to like $4.5 million in, I think, 2 years we had a very small piece in that. He had a great idea, a great vision. He's a very driven guy. We just helped him kind of like map out the infrastructure piece of it. But that was cool. And that was the beginning of Industry, where I was like, okay, maybe this is something that we can do. And then we worked with, man, I don't know, hundreds of brands over the years. But a lot of guys, that's what I love about the apparel space too, is that it's actually a very small community. So even though we don't work with every brand, we know almost everybody in the space. Like I've talked with Tyler from 9line. We had dinner with the former CEO of Grunt Style. Like we end up knowing everybody, and we've never worked with either of those companies.
And for Industry, you essentially you carved out this niche where a lot of people come out of the military and they want to do what you did, which is start a successful fashion brand.
Which I don't recommend, by the way.
Right, but they do it anyways.
Yeah.
And you service that.
Yeah, that's the first thing I tell them is I want to start a apparel line. My first thing is like, I don't recommend doing this, and then here's why. But if you are going to do it, here's the patterns again. Here's what we've seen work. Here's the way to do it. Here's the whole game plan for it. And then we help them kind of walk that path. And we don't take any equity in them or anything. We just manufacture for them. And
do distribution and all that stuff, right? So, yeah. You take a lot of the pain points off of the entrepreneur's back.
Yeah, we allow them to scale without having to hire anybody or do, like, a lot of our brands we work with now are single owners, and they don't really need any other employees, except maybe a lot of them have like one full-time employee, and we handle all their manufacturing. We spun off, because Industry used to do the fulfillment as well, but we spun off the fulfillment into a separate company about 3 or 4 years ago called Archive that just does fulfillment. Did you guys get a chance to go back there?
No, we haven't walked through it. Yeah.
So that's all the fulfillment back there. It's just operation stuff. It looks like a lot, but it's just systems and processes. And then once you have those dialed in, then it's just managing the people that do the systems and processes. It's just all the boring infrastructure stuff that nobody wants to do.
Yeah. And I guess this last piece, like, I remember being in grad school at Harvard, right? Like, big buckety buck, like eating ramen, having to do war correspondent work to pay for school, and I'd look back and I saw my buddy Ryan from SEAL Team 1 driving a Lambo. Like, you were like the first one of my friends to have a Lambo.
It was fun, man.
You were crushing.
Everybody,
but through like hard work, you became the serial entrepreneur, and you have achieved like the American dream. It's insane.
Yeah, it's funny, man. Like I used to think that a Lambo was a pinnacle, I was like, oh, I want to get a Lambo one day. Because I grew up poor, and I dropped out of high school. So I had no money. I had no idea of like real money. So I thought, getting a Lambo, I'm rich. And then I got the Lambo, and I met people with real money. I'm like, I'm poor again. I just didn't realize the
goalposts keep shifting.
Dude, totally. Yeah. I didn't realize how many levels there are to it. I was like, wow, this is there's so much to learn. And that's a big thing about what I love about entrepreneurship is there's really no, like the ladder never ends. You know what I mean? Even at the top, whether, Elon or Bezos or whatever, it always shifts. It's like fighting. There's always like the best or the biggest or whatever, but somebody's going to knock you off and whatever. So I think entrepreneurship is you gotta figure out what your version of success looks like and define that for yourself first, and then shoot for that and achieve that, and then maybe reevaluate and be like, okay, do I want to do the work to achieve more than that? Because every new level is a whole different level of sacrifice, whole different level of bandwidth and commitment, and sometimes, like, depending on what your life looks like if you're single with no kids, like, it's a great time to grind. If you've got, a wife or kids or other real, adult responsibilities, man, you can't take the same risks. You maybe, can't work 18 hours a day. But because when Mike and I were grinding on Forged, we were working, no shit, 16 to 18 hours a day, 6.5 days a week. Like, no joke, for like a year and a half. It was straight grind mode. And I sacrificed everything for that. I sacrificed relationships and everything put on the back burner. It was a lot like buds, man. It was like, this is our goal. We're not quitting. Like, this is what we want to achieve, and we're going to sacrifice everything to achieve it. And I mean, it worked, not in the way I thought, but it's part of the process.
Yeah. We like to do this thing. We call it rapid fire. It's like shooting steel. You get instant feedback. All right. So I'm going to ping you with a couple questions, and just give me your like a Rorschach test, the first thing that comes to your mind. Best investment you ever made?
Marriage. Yeah, I think who you marry is the most important business partnership you'll ever make, dude. Like, you got to find the right person, and like, you got to be attracted to them, because I mean, that's important. It helps, obviously. But I mean, hot chicks, living in Florida and San Diego, there's hot chicks everywhere, bro. And there's there's hot dudes everywhere. It's like, it's so common. It's like, what else do you have? Like, are you a good person? Can I trust you? Are you willing to build? A short example of this, when I almost lost the whole company about 5 years ago, because I made some pretty serious mistakes. And I was laying in bed at night, and I was like, oh my God, I'm a terrible husband. I'm a terrible entrepreneur. It's like 4:30 in the morning. I'm sitting up staring at the ceiling. And my wife was the CEO. I'd just given her CEO position because she's a better CEO than me. And I'm staring at the ceiling, and she rolls over, and she's like, babe, are you still up? And I'm like, oh my God, honey, I don't know how I got us in this position. I don't know what we're going to do. And she's like, she looked at me and she goes, babe, yeah, I don't know either, but I know we're going to figure it out. I was like, I married the right person. And we did, we figured it out. But that was the hardest 1 week of entrepreneurship in 18 years, when we knew what the problem was, but we didn't know how to fix it yet.
I gotta drill down and ask. I'm curious. At this point, you'd already been really successful. So what was it you did that almost like sunk the whole?
We expanded too fast. So we got up to about 7 million in top line revenue at the time, which I found out later is a really dangerous spot. We like between 6 and 10 million is really tough. I found out later that I knew 3 or 4 other dudes that had gotten into similar problems, and some of them lost their whole companies at that range, because you're big enough where you can't be involved in everything. You got to hand off the reins, but you're not big enough where you can hire absolute killers for $200,000, $300,000, $400,000 to come in and fully run stuff. So you hand off the reins, but this person might not be fully qualified for this position. And that's what happened to me. And also too, I was working on my leadership at the time, because I've always been like super involved in the business. I built everything, and I was trying to, what's a Jocko's term, like disassociated command or something like that. Yeah, I was trying to do that and be less involved, and I did not execute it correctly, because I was like, oh, I hired who I thought was good people. They had all the qualifications. And I'm like, oh, I'm not going to get in their shit. I'm just going to let them do their thing. Big mistake. There's this old term, inspect what you expect. And I did not do that. And so we hired the CFO, and every time as we're expanding, hey, do we have money to hire these people for marketing? Do we have money to commit to these leases? And we had 3 warehouses and a big HQ space and 24 people on staff and over $1 million in payroll. And every time his answer was, oh, let me check. Oh yeah, we can do that. So it turns out we could not do it. And once we looked under the hood, we were losing $20,000 to $30,000 a month.
Yeah,
we were $500,000 in debt.
And with a burn rate you had to run back.
We're $500,000 in debt, and I had 30 grand in the bank. And I owed a friend of mine, like not only the bank, I owed a friend of mine over 300 grand. And I felt like such a piece of shit. It was terrible. But we worked it out. And that's how I learned too, that it's not the amount of money you owe, it's how you handle it. And so I called up my buddy that owns the shop that we partner with. I was like, hey man, here's what's going on. Like, I don't know how we're going to fix this, but we're going to fix it. And it was like, hey, I can get you 10 grand today. I can get you 9 grand on Tuesday. I can get you whatever. And we just chipped away at it. And I always hit the numbers and I always hit the timeline, and we're still friends and we made it work. It's how you handle that matters, dude. But that was the hardest time in entrepreneurship I've ever had, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, and it is like, there is in life, not just business, but this like flying too close to the sun principle that you have to like constantly check your six on.
It's a very dangerous position where you're handing off the reins, but I didn't have the experience to know what to look for and the questions to ask. I mean, I do now, but.
So all right. So back to rapid fire. Would you call that the dumbest financial mistake you ever made?
Oh, absolutely. Yes. Yeah.
How about SEAL skill that's been most useful in business?
Honestly, none. In fact, I'd say it's probably a detriment in most cases. The one thing that would be useful is thinking out of the box and finding different solutions, creative solutions to things. But I think a lot of people, and this happens with high-level spec war guys, it happens with professional athletes, it happens with like doctors, pilots. You achieve a certain level of competence and success in one area, and you think that transfers over to everything else. And it does pieces of it, but when you're entering a new arena, you got to realize that you're the new guy in this new arena, and you got to approach from the ground level, manage your stifle your ego, and be like, I'm a new guy again, and go to somebody like, hey, teach me. I don't know shit. Teach me, and be willing to learn. And if you can do that, then you can apply the things that you learned at the higher level. But if you think it transfers over, most of it doesn't, to be honest.
Yeah. And the other thing I always say about like the NSW mentality is that sometimes the things that serve us in the teams, which is like running straight through the wall, running right at the 800-pound gorilla and never quitting, which is part of our ethos, are actually do a disservice to us in business, right? It's not that you still never quit, but you have to have the ability to pivot and to find a way around obstacles.
I think that's a good point. Like, people misunderstand quitting for pivoting. Like, I quit a ton of stuff. But you gotta know when to call it. You gotta know when, hey, it's a bad idea. This idea I had didn't work. I'm quitting this idea and I'm moving on to something else. But that's a definition of focus. The definition of focus is excluding so many other things, so you can focus on this one thing. But yeah, a lot of people are like, I'm never quitting. Like, maybe you should.
Yeah. I'm just gonna ride this thing to the bottom, straight to the bottom. Like, yeah. How about a book that changed your mind?
Man, Never Split the Difference by Chris Voss. Been a huge help for me because in my life, I'm very straightforward, and I made a lot of partnerships and deals with people where I would present them a deal that I thought, if I was on the other end of it, was a good deal. But it blew up in almost every situation. And it wasn't until I realized that I was approaching the situation from my perspective, and what I should have done is figure out, what does this person want from this equation? How can I get them what they want, what they think is a good deal for them, and then work around and get what I want from that deal? And that's been a huge game changer for me, because it's not my normal default thing, but that book was hugely beneficial for me.
Yeah. And then finally, is there a part of your personal routine that you think helps keep the knife sharp for doing entrepreneurship, for doing business, like morning habits? Is there something like that?
I think there's a couple things that make it up. At the end of the day, I think it's just being confident in your decisions based on your personality. I know when I don't feel like I'm my best, I don't perform at my best. So I need to make sure that I'm in shape, that I feel confident, like personally. When I'm making good decisions for the business, also having money helps too, because I know, dude, there's been times when I didn't have any money. And it's real tempting to fuck people over because you're drowning. A drowning man will take anything you can get, dude. And it's a dangerous position to be in. And there's been times where I didn't make the best decisions because I was drowning, and it just eats at me, man. But so looking back on those decisions now, like the life raft always comes, as long as you maintain your character, maintain your choices, maintain the goodwill that got you to that point, maintain that. Don't throw it away over small problems, because there's always a way out.
Yeah, I only think of money these days now. Like I also, I'm like a hippie kid from Santa Cruz. Like I didn't grow up with like as a trustafarian, despite my external appearance. No. And I always think of money as financial body armor, right? It
Totally.
protects you against like the inevitable assault of life, like because it's coming, right? Like somebody's gonna snipe you.
Dude, money solves a lot of problems, bro. Yeah, anybody says money doesn't matter, has never been poor.
Yeah.
Money solves a lot of problems.
And finally, if you sort of had one piece of advice for somebody who is transitioning out of the military and thinking about like their next journey and was like considering the field of entrepreneurship, like what would it be? Besides, don't do it.
Yeah, well, two things. Number one, I would say it's not as sexy as modern media.
It's not all driving around in your Lambo?
No, it's not, man. It's tough. I remember I was driving around my first Lamborghini, and I was looking at my bank, and I had like literally $2.83 in my bank account at one point.
Oh,
I mean, we had at the end of
sound like a Miami guy.
Yeah.
Typical Miami guy.
No, but I mean, like, because it was at the end of that day, I had like 90 grand in there because we were waiting for a check to clear. It was just like that timing.
Yeah.
I just thought it was funny. It was like I'm driving this $280,000 car, and I have $2.83 in my bank account. I was like, I just laughed. I'm like, because at that point I was just used to it. It's like, oh, it is what it is. But that's the reality of entrepreneurship. And the other piece of it is that if you do decide that it is what you want to do and you're passionate about it and you're going to go for it, just take the steps. Just take the first step. There's been so many times in my life where I was trying to plan out steps 3, 5, 10, 100, and I think now the best way to do it is set a big goal, like set a 100-mile goal, right? Like you're generally going this direction, and take the first step. And through the process of taking that first step, the second step will become very clear. And it's never the one I thought it was going to be. It's always I take that step and then I learn something new. I'm like, oh, you know what? The second step is actually over here. And I take that. I'm like, oh, okay, that's over here. So it's never a straight path. I'm never going directly where I want to go, but it's always in this direction. And it's always been a much better position, a much better decision after I take that first step, where I know where the next piece of the puzzle is to plug in. So I would say, like, and this from being actually educated and stuff, is that like a plan never goes the way you think it's going to be. You have a general idea what you want to do, but it really comes down to execution. You just got to do it. And I think success in entrepreneurship is basically two things. It's very simple. Number one, you just got to keep going. And number two, you got to try to not make the same mistake twice. And if you do that over a long enough timeline, the only outcome is success. It's easier to say that than to do it.
Yeah, but that is how you get up and to the right. Well, Ryan, it's been awesome having you. Thank you for sharing your wisdom. And how do people connect with you and your work? Because you also now help, like, it's so funny, over the long arc of our friendship, we used to talk about strippers, now we talk about serial entrepreneurs, right?
Right. Yeah.
For a while
I
it was
love that,
seals,
though,
then
man.
it was strippers, and now we talk sexy finance, right?
Yeah, we made all the other mistakes. So.
You advise other entrepreneurs, right? You talk about entrepreneurship. How do people connect with you and your work and the stuff you do?
I think, our website for production is industrythreadworks.com. It's pretty straightforward. The 3PL fulfillment is archive3pl.com. But I do a lot on Instagram. I really enjoy social media. It's fun, like kind of arm's length discussions. I do really enjoy that type of network. But yeah, Invictus5326 is my personal Instagram. That's kind of the hub for all the stuff that we have going with the other podcast. And it's kind of where I spend most of my time.
Yeah. Yeah, and then you do your own podcast as well.
Yeah, which you're going to be on tomorrow.
Heck yeah. Oh, I guess I'm excited. Yeah.
We're going to have to all the...
Can't cancel me twice, right?
We're going to talk about all the stuff we can't talk about here.
Exactly. Well, awesome. Thank you, Ryan, from sailor to serial entrepreneur. And whether you know it or not, you have been a spark of inspiration for me and others on their entrepreneurial journey. So thank you for sharing your wisdom. Thanks for sharing your knowledge. Thanks for sharing your studio. And look forward to tomorrow.
Thanks for having me, brother.
Yeah, bro.
It's good to see you.
All right. Thanks for locking in with us today. Shout out to Siebert.Bauer and Siebert Financial for supporting our journey. We'll be back next week with another powerhouse conversation. More founders, more builders, and leaders who are playing offense in life and in business. Make sure you're subscribed to our YouTube channel for exclusive content and extended cuts of your favorite episodes. Until next week, stay tactical, stay driven.
Tactical Wealth is a Jebbia media production brought to you by Siebert Valor, a military-focused initiative from Siebert Financial. The Tactical Wealth podcast is for informational and entertainment purposes only. The views expressed by guests are their own and do not necessarily reflect those of Siebert Financial. This podcast does not constitute investment advice, an offer to sell, or a solicitation to buy any securities. Past performance is not indicative of future results. Listeners should consult a qualified financial professional before making any investment decisions. For more information and disclosures, please visit siebert.com/disclosures.